Hey folks, Steve here with another Dark Sands video. This turn is going to be 14, and we'll also look to do turn 15 in this video. And then in the next video, hopefully we ought to get through turn 16 and 17, and then I plan in that next video with 16 and 17 to do sort of a debrief based on the results of the game, and then I'll do another video as a review. So that's sort of the look ahead here. This turn has Axis Initiative, and it is actually the first turn that the Allies can make use of their Allied Assault Doctrine, which I'll cover here in a second. I did the replacements, so the Allies got a tank and a few infantry. They were able to basically repair a tank unit that is already on the map, and then they repaired an infantry unit, and then they rebuilt a unit. The Axis were able to rebuild an infantry unit, and then they were able to top off an Italian unit that was way behind the front line. So maybe, you know, not the perfect solution, but the reality is we just don't have that many injured units, for better or for worse. Probably all a result of my cautious play. So, and just to kind of talk about what that assault doctrine really is during any Allied combat action during turns 14 through 17, the Allies may use the assault CRT table. There's a couple of constraints around that, which are kind of interesting. So there's divisional integrity. Each attacking hex must contain at least 2 infantry brigades from the same divisional formation. And I'm trying to make sure I understand the verbiage here. Each attacking hex must contain at least 2 infantry brigades for the same divisional formation. I would read that as meaning you could have one division in one hex and a different division in another hex, as long as like each hex is its own division. I think that's allowed. Not everyone attacking has to be of the same formation and 2 brigades in each hex. Infantry majority, so more than half the attacking steps must be infantry. That is actually going to be a bit difficult. So like I think I've kept most of my divisions on the Allied side together for the most part, but we also scattered about the Allied tanks, and the stacking has made it a little more difficult to make use of those, and so we may have some issues making sure that we have enough steps involved in the combat to make it majority infantry, just the hex positions. We might have to move some units around on the front line to make that work. And then there's additional losses, so the attacker will lose 1 additional infantry step above the CRT losses. And I was wondering, well, why don't you just build that into the results on the combat results table, but the combat results table uses the same sort of verbiage and terminology as the mobile CRT, so you're just supposed to remember, hey, if you're doing an assault, you as the attacker will take another loss. So you can kind of, you know, to understand that, like, even if you were to completely destroy the enemy, you still take a step loss. So, you know, even if it's, you know, a DE result where the defender's eliminated, we're going to take a loss as the ally. So I was kind of thinking maybe this assault doctrine would be super powerful, but now seeing some of the constraints under it, it might be situational here, but the Allies can't afford to mess around. I'm going to show the sort of front line situation here. You can see there's a lot stacked up here. The Allies have a preponderance of force, but they need to get through the Axis to make use of it and to race to the victory point spots that are still on the map that are under Axis control. So, you know, for the entire length of this game, I've been relatively cautious, and I think now the problem is the Allies can't afford it. If they don't move this front line at all, they just lose 3 victory points to 0, and that's it. So they're going to have to really take some risks here, and some of those risks, if these assault combats go poorly, could leave the Allies so weak that they can't actually make the gains that they need to make. So you know, we could end up having just tons of losses, and maybe the Allies are going to squeak away with the victory with the map mostly emptied of units just because there's been so much damage done. Let's take a look at the activation chits for this turn. So let me get that on screen. It's gonna, my stand is a little funky right now. I gotta fix it a little bit here. Okay, so, nothing too crazy. This is a very, I think a very good setup for the allies. They have a reinforcement chit. They've got this new specialty chit, Monty. It's a priority chit. And what Monty allows them to do is, it's a priority chit. The only issue is that I believe Rommel preempts Monty. So if the allied player is, I'm going to play Monty, the Axis can play Rommel instead. But what Monty does do is it does act as a full move or full combat chit. So it's sort of like the ALK that we had last turn, maybe slightly worse because it could be preempted by Rommel. But the allies do get a move or combat chit, so 2 full ors, and then 2 crappy ors, so half move or crappy combat, which, this is probably the maximum amount of flexibility you're likely to get, because they could do 2 full moves and then 2 crappy combats. That's feasible. Alternatively, they could do, 2 good combats and 2 crappy moves, or, one of each, right? And I think that's sort of, I think the one of each tends to be valuable, because I think they at least need to have some good attacks, and then they need some full moves to actually make use of the situation they've created. And it could be, it's going to take between the next couple of turns to really batter down the Axis. So maybe they want the full combats and they'll worry about the movement in later turns. We'll have to see. The Axis, by comparison, have their reinforcement chit. Now, they only get 1 unit, and it's their last reinforcement, so not much to say here. By comparison, when the Allied reinforcement chit comes up, it's going to be a whole bunch of upgrades for the tank units. So, no new units, but a lot of upgrades. And that will probably be useful to some degree for the Allies as we go through here. The Axis gets Rommel. They get their Panzer Army Africa. Again, really only useful on the center map. But at this point, I don't think the Axis has any reason to go onto the East map. They just need to hold what they have to win. So, I think this has turned out to be situationally okay for us, given the current game situation. 21st Corps, we know what that is. A full move or full combat, and then we've got 2 crappy ors, so a half move or crappy combat. I suspect, we may do one and the other, because it could be the Axis needs to use this as a combat and try to take down some of the allies before they get a chance to wallop us, and then use the rest of these maybe as moves to kind of help reposition the line if we have to do it. So, we'll have to see how the chits come out. That's the real point of all of this, right, is the chits will come out how they will, and you act the best that they can. What's funny is, so many turns of the game, sort of the middle third of the game, it felt like the chits were there's an obvious what you're going to do with it. It felt super obvious. No matter what order they came out in, this is what you're going to try to do. And I think maybe that was because one side just had initiative and had its battle plan well figured out. Here, it's just too crucial. It's too tough to know how we're going to use them. And I like that feeling that it's you've got a lot of options, you just don't know what to do with them. Where, again, in other turns, it just felt I got to do it this way. That's the only thing worth doing. And I don't quite like that as much. But, that's been a kind of a point that I've just been worried about all game, is does the activation schedule impact the game too much? And by the way, I just want to do a quick shout out. Ted, if you're watching, hi. I know you've been watching some of these videos. I appreciate you viewing, and I don't mean too much of this as criticisms of the game, just things that I'm thinking through as I'm playing. I'll give my full thoughts in a review, but so far so good. We're having a good time. So with the Axis initiative, we do have to decide what we want to do here. The reinforcement's not going to do much for us. Obviously, we're going to hold Rommel and Monty out as the priority chits. So now it's really just, well, what do we want to do here? And it could be we either use the Panzer Army Africa or we do a full combat. But I think the Panzer Army Africa might be the best choice because it allows us to move a couple of units that we have on the board that aren't quite up to snuff. We had just rebuilt this unit, and so we would probably want to get him and some of these units sort of moved up, maybe, and try to take some hits at the Allies before they can take hits at us. So I think that's what we may do. Panzer Army Africa, Chet, get some movement with the current situation with the Panzer Army HQ, and then from there we should be in an okay position for the rest of the turn. So yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So we'll do Panzer Army Africa, Chet. I'm going to take us off recording. I'm going to move some stuff around, and we'll look at some combats here. In interest of time, I'm just going to take care of all of that off camera, and when I return, we'll talk through what the end result of the chits were after movement and all the combats that I'm going to be taking. So we will be back. Okay, well, as far as attacks go, that wasn't great. So I moved some units around a little bit to try to get some decent attacks. An attack here, I tritted the attacker, we got nowhere. An attack here with some anti-tank support knocked some units back, so that's why they're now over here. But we didn't actually cause a step loss, but we did move them out, so it sort of reduces the firepower that they have without having a move taken. And then I tried attacking here, and I realized how stupid it was because I could only attack with these two stacks, and the units here, they're overstacked a little bit for combat stack, but it was, this unit, there was a tank, and then this really strong defense Free French unit. And here, this and the tank were just too insurmountable, and it was rolling 1-to-1 odds, basically, unfortunately, and I rolled a 4, so it at least was, both sides lose a step, but we're at the point now where it's, the Axis don't want to lose any steps if they can help it. So, not great. It turned out to not be great. And now we're gonna get into the chits. I don't think Monty wants to try to go, and I don't think we want to have Rommel go. Yeah, it's too early in the turn. So shaking it all up, pulling the next chit, and it is Axis reinforcements. This is really straightforward. We're only getting one unit, but fortunately we can put it on an HQ. I'm just going to clip its corners very swiftly. And there we go. And we're just going to plunk this guy, I think right here, because we've got some potential weakness afoot. So that was an easy reinforcement, no big deal. And that is it for Axis reinforcements, by the way. They're completely done. Alright, so I'm going to pull the next chit, and it has to be an allied chit at this point. And we do get, it's either a full move or a full combat. I think we've got enough units in range that doing this as a full move is probably a waste. A full combat now would probably be best, though I think we're going to have issues actually doing the assault doctrine. I don't think we have a lot of options where we can actually do it properly, so it could actually be worth a move just for that alone to rearrange the units so that they can do proper assault combat later in the turn. So I'm going to take us off recording. I'm going to look at what the situation is, and then we'll come back. Okay, so again, I find that previous Steve did not pay enough attention to the divisional organization. I had, mostly when new divisional stacks would come in as reinforcements, I would keep them together. But the ones that have been around the longest, especially the ones that have withdrawn and come back on the board, just have not kept good cohesion being next to one another, and I had a bunch of stuff scattered. Now, I still have a bunch of stuff scattered, but I've tried to focus now some new efforts on where I want those future assaults to be, and so what I ended up doing is I pulled some units back to make room. I moved some units up so that we do have some good potential possibilities for doing assault combat. We actually have some great possibilities down here and then here. We have some up here as well, and so it's not, and as well as here. So it's not a perfect situation, but I do think that I've set it up much better. Now we gave up a full combat to do it, but we're going to have more chits coming, and I think it'll be fine this turn. Just as long as I can keep the units organized now, I can get them back into position now, then that should pay off here as we get going. There's a bunch of weirdness here with the map division, and I know in the rule book, Ted advises to try to stay away from the map edge, but so far I don't think it's really been an issue for me to kind of recognize what needs to happen and what are the movement costs. And honestly, like, it makes sense for the Germans to be defending this close to the border because they can make use of some of the rough down here, and the rough is so close to the border anyway, so it's like they want to make use of that. They want the distance down here to be a problem for the Allies to wrap around. So it's just a function of the map, I guess. So they did their movement. They're set up, so as soon as they can make use of a chit, they could do it. They could do Monty right now, but Monty's just going to get overrun by Rommel. Not that I think Rommel could actually do much to change what we're looking at here, but it's just something I'm trying to be aware of. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna pull the next chit. We're just gonna see what happens here. It's just gonna be a slugfest. We get the German move or attack. Well, I think they're going to want to do a combat because I think they want to try to hit some of the units before they get hit. So again, I'm going to take us off camera. I'm going to do some slight movements, and then we're going to set up some combats, and I'm going to resolve them, and we'll come back and I'll show what happened. Okay, here we are after the combats. Well, the Italians are living up to their name and reputation in World War II, so we attrited here and lost a tank step. The Germans did marginally better by forcing some retreats and even a step loss in one case. So we had some combats in and around here, and up here. And we forced some units back. And actually, I didn't want to advance after combat because that would have put them in a kill box. So I had one correction. So the Germans are kind of doing what they need to do, which is disrupt the Allies from being able to launch the real attacks they'd like to be with the full force of what they have without having to move again, and they are really only going to have so many moves left. So we'll have to see how that ends up going. Yeah. Okay, we're going to pull the next chit, and it is, whoops, I actually grabbed two. Do it again. We get logistics. Well, logistics is all good everywhere, so we won't worry about that. The next chit drawn is the 21st HQ Corps. Now, we've used up a lot of our resources. I don't know that there's any real movement we want to be making at the moment. We've got some challenges in and around down here. I think we will move down this way. And we could try to attack down here, but I don't think we have enough to make a real go of it. There wouldn't be any assets except maybe some Italian air, and it would be 6, 12, 15 to 8. So we can make it 2-to-1 odds. Gosh, every other time I've done 2-to-1 odds, we've just made a fool of ourselves. But I think it's worth a shot. Because again, if we can force these guys to retreat, then they can't do quite as much as they would have liked. So we will spend the Axis air to make it a 16 to 8, 2-to-1 odds. We'll roll the die. Went off the map a little bit. It is a DR result. So we're going to have to force these guys to retreat, and it's going to be 2 hexes, bop, bop, like so, onto the east map. Now they could advance after combat, and that actually would put this guy out of supply, and they would still be okay for supply because they could trace up through here. So I think they'll do that. And now this guy's got problems that will need solving. Well, no, because if they attack, yeah, okay, it's the weird map thing. If they attack across that hex side, then we automatically have to retreat, and we'll end up retreating several hexes. So it just doesn't make sense to do that right now. Okay, well that was a decent move. Next chit. Next chit will be Allied move or crappy combat. Well, if they move, this will be their last move, but they kind of need to do it so they can get a good combat. So this will be an Allied move. We're probably going to be able to do this pretty quickly. So 1, 2, 3. Let's see. I want to try to get, if we can, the right set of divisional units. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll get him in here. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 also. Yeah, we're getting kind of to the point where we just want to get units back into the zone. And if we can't do it to cause assault doctrine, we can at least just stuff units back in the way. Only thing is I'm having trouble getting everywhere I really would like to be. But I think we're just about getting the units where I want them for what needs to happen next. So I'm even pulling some of my tanks back because what I'd like to be able to do, because we're stuck using brigades with the Allies, we need to be able to use the infantry steps for the assault doctrine, but at least the tanks can be there to support. Now what we'd like to have happen is we draw some of the attacks that we want, and then, well actually now might be a great time to say, like, okay, I'm going to use Monty, and it's going to be a full-bore attack, and we're going to be able to do the assaults that we'd like to make now. And Rommel's not going to intercede because, okay, maybe they would either intercede, do something, and then Monty would still go later. So might as well let Monty go now and let Rommel be playing disaster recovery afterwards. So Monty will be played, and the Allies want to use this as a combat. Now, where do we actually have assault doctrine capability? So again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, we need to make sure that the divisions are operating in cohesion, and that the majority is infantry, and that, well, I guess that's really it. But we've set ourselves up pretty well to be able to do this in several different places. So we have the entire New Zealand division down here. We've got the 9th Australian Division, mostly here with a tank support. So these guys could attack here, and then these guys could just attack here, or these guys could, in theory, I'm pretty sure, double up, even though they're two different divisions. Each hex is its own division, could attack here, and then I guess this guy maybe doesn't really do anything. We've also got the, let's see if I can get this right. We've got the 50th Division here with tank support, though the tank wouldn't be involved in the assault combat, to go here. We've got the 51st Division that could go here. That unit isn't necessarily a good one for this, neither is this stack. I don't think this stack is, no. But we do have the 44th Division up here that could and would. Now the only problem is just the restriction on combat. So each attacking hex must contain at least 2 infantry brigades from the same divisional formation. What's interesting is that each hex must contain that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that tanks can't be involved if they're also in the hex. You just maybe, like we had, you know, two 9th Australian Division units here and a tank. We could, in theory, just attack with a brigade and the tank, as long as we're attacking from another hex with a division that is all infantry. I'm pretty sure if I read these Allied Assault Doctrine bullet points correctly, that would work. So what do we really want to try to do here? So down in the south, we could attempt to knock out these units, and that would actually be good to help break open down here in the south, and maybe we could reroute some of these tanks to go up that way eventually. Taking this stack out is maybe less valuable than taking this stack. It would be, what, 9 to, let's say, what, 7, 8, 9, 9. So it would be 1-to-1 odds on the assault table, and gosh, that's, yeah, it's a little rough. We would have to really be counting on making headway here. They've got 6 factors in this hex, and we could attack with 6, so that would be 1-to-1 as well. Boy, this is tough. And then some of these other areas. There's something, I guess, this could be an errata problem, and I need to check the errata about doing these attacks, because it's like, well, if the units just have to, if the divisions are just there, if they just need to be part of the same division in the hex, but due to combat stacking, you don't attack with them. That seems like a seam in the rules that I'm exploiting, and is maybe a little bit gamey, but that's what the rules say. So I could actually have this stack and this stack attack here, this stack and this stack attack here. We could make use of the tank in this stack with one of these 50th Division, two 50th Division units. Yeah, this seems a little gamey, honestly, as I'm looking through what's going down here, but I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so this is what we're going to end up doing, I guess. If I interpret that correctly, there'll be this attack like that. There'll be this attack like that. These guys attacking over here won't make sense, so we won't hear. Even as an assault, it wouldn't make sense. We would just hurt ourselves. Does a regular attack make sense? 8, 7, 15 to 8. And we would get, this will be a regular attack, I guess. Here, the mobile CRT. And there's actually going to be an attack up here with Assault Doctrine. Again, I'm really not sure if I'm not exploiting something in the rules. So this is gonna be a long segment because I want to make sure I illustrate how this is gonna work. Okay. So first we'll do this down here, right? I'm going to remove the attack markers and we'll run through the combat. The defense factors are 4, 7, and then the fortified box gives 2 more for 9. We would be assaulting all with... oh shoot, I can't... Okay. I can't do it with this hex because it's not 2 brigades. If we did do the attack, it would be 6 to 9, which would be, what, 1 to 2 odds. I think we still do it. Sure, yeah, we'll still do it. So it's just this hex attacking here. 1 to 2 odds on the assault table. No die roll modifiers to speak of. We rolled a 4. 4 is both sides take a step loss, so we'll lose it here. But then this tank unit takes a step loss. And in theory, that's not bad, right? We're attriting the axis, and they're not going to be able to replace the points as well. All right, we'll look at the next combat. Here. Now we have 2 brigades. The tank unit won't be involved, but 2 brigades. So 6. Then here we have 2 brigades, but we're going to use one of these brigades in a tank unit. And that means that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 infantry factors attacking and only 2 tank. So that's eligible for assault. There are 2 50th Division units in the stack. We're only going to attack with 2 units out of the stack, but the tank is enabled for this. If I'm reading the rules correctly, and if it turns out I'm wrong, and Ted, you're watching, this might be an area for clarification. So that would be 6, 9, plus 7 is 16. So 16 combat factors against 6. Let's see if we're in range. I don't think we're in range for any other support, unfortunately. So, yeah. Alright, 16 to 6. That's 2 to 1 odds. Not as good as it maybe could have been. And I wonder if maybe instead of the tank, technically I shouldn't correct myself, but if I just did it with the infantry instead, I don't put the tanks at risk, and it's still 2 to 1 odds. So I guess and there's no help that can be thrown in, so that's what we'll do. It'll be these 2 different divisions attacking. It's going to be 12 factors to 6, 2 to 1 odds on the assault table. We rolled a 6, which is the best, and it is a 1/2 EX result. So, I think I need to look at the definition of that. All attacking and defending units reduced by 1 step, single step units are eliminated. All attacking and defending units reduced by 1 step. That's actually not good. I mean, it's okay. But when you're attacking with this many units, that's actually just more from multiplication. That's more step losses for the allies. But okay. Well, this Italian tank unit is eliminated, so there's that at least. And then we attrit that unit. But then this unit, these 2 units take some step losses. These 2 units take a step loss each. Now, it's good we have the tanks there to cover them, but I do think this is technically done well for the Allies because they've hurt the Italians who are holding the southern line. Okay, and now for our attacks in the north. We're doing attacks here and here into this hex. Move that, and I believe this is just a standard mobile attack. So we have 8 and 7, so 15 to 8. We can make it 2 to 1 odds by using the 30th. Oh, I'm sorry, the 13th HQ, which is right below. So 8, so 2 to 1 odds on the regular mobile. No other die roll modifiers. I rolled a 6. Allies are rolling hot, so 2 to 1. The mobile is DR star, so they take a step loss and have to retreat 4 hexes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we could have these units advance after combat, and we will do that. So okay, we're starting to see some Allied gains here, and then up north, move the attack markers. So we have, here's what's interesting. We have the 10th Allied tank brigade that could go, right? So we have each attacking hex must contain at least 2 infantry brigades. Dang it. Okay, well, that's fine. This can be a regular combat. We don't need it to be an assault. So we have 6, 12, 12 to Ugh. Not great. Okay. 6, 8, 10. So 12 to 10. 1-1 odds on the mobile. This is actually not a great attack, because we couldn't actually do the assault the way I wanted to. Rolled a 3. Both sides lose a step, and they're gonna have to take it to tank. And I guess they'll lose it from this unit. Or I'm not looking in the right spot. My bad. They attacked up here on the coast road. So, I don't know if I have to take the armored car as the first loss or not, but we'll take it. Okay, well. Alright, well, there you go. That was the Monty Chit. And I think what we may need to do, just to set up for better attacks. Ugh, things are getting kind of ugly in a couple of spots along this line, honestly. Alright, we're going to play the Rommel Chit. And we're going to activate the 21st German Division. And as soon as I can figure out what I just did with the Rommel Chit, I think I just moved it and set it down, and now I lost it. What did I do with it? I just had it. I'm going to take us off recording. Hold on. Okay, I found my Rommel Chit. Let me turn off my fan. I was kind of freaking out, and I realized it's like right below the camera. I had dropped it somehow. So Rommel's going to go. We're going to activate the 21st Tank Division, which means these guys here are activated. And technically, this guy also activates. And so what we'll do is we're going to have him swing around like so. And I'm pretty sure that's it. Now there's some danger in us weakening that spot up there, but I think we need to try to strike where we can. And then what we're going to have happen is we are going to have these units. Let me see if there's anybody else nearby that could be activated. I think that's it. So we're sort of plugging him through. Actually, we'll have him go here. We'll leave this go, it's okay. Have him come all the way down here, and then we're going to attack this hex here. So they've got 10, but it's just infantry, and they've got nothing to protect themselves with. And it's going to be 32, 35, so 3-to-1 odds with a +2. rolled a 1 plus 2 is 3 is DR, so they retreat. Of course, with the Panzer Doctrine, they are going to take a step loss, so take a step loss, and then they're going to retreat 1, 2, like so, and they're not going to advance after combat. Now we did that because we just want to, again, keep trying to break up what the Allies are trying to do and hit them where it makes sense to, so that we can do better attacks later as well. The thing is, when the Allies stack up their infantry to do infantry attacks, that puts them at risk of getting hit with the panzers, but in those spots where we've got the tanks in the stack as well, sort of over the combat stacking, you can pick to defend with them. So it's sort of, there's a lot of versatility, I think, in the Allies stacking if they can get it right. Okay, the next chit is, let's see, Axis half move or crappy combat. Crappy combat might work. Crappy combat might just work out just fine, actually. We'll have to be careful with the crappy combat, though. That's the only thing. We're going to have to be careful with what we get. Alternatively, we could move, and the movement might not be bad, it just might not be ideal for what we want to do. And just knowing that there's still several Axis actions coming up, but if we can attack, we can at least attack on our terms. So we'll look at doing this as a combat. I'm going to scope things out, and I'll show what happens afterwards. Okay, so, the tough thing is right now, we just took an EX loss, or I'm sorry, dang it, I screwed up a little bit. See, they would have had to retreat. Boy, they're having trouble getting everywhere. Okay, so we were able to get some retreats and some step losses to the Allies without getting too much of a problem, but it's just, I was hoping to do a little bit better than that, but it's almost as the best we can do is just force retreats and make the Allies keep coming back after us. Okay, so the next chit comes up is the Allied, let's see, well, it's an Allied crappy combat, and they're not in the best position to actually do that combat, but they've got some possibilities here. So they could do combat down here. It'd probably be bloody. Up here is really where we're probably going to do a little bit better, up in the north. But we've just lost our position a great deal. And it's just not going to work out well. We can't attack in the middle, basically, is what's going to happen. So we'll have to look to the north and the south individually as our place to go. We can't do any more moves because we already did a full move. We did a half move. Technically, we're still going to have a full combat in the cup. We're just likely not going to be able to make use of it, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm going to do the combats and then we'll be back. Okay, so here we're at with the results. So we had an attack up here. It was really both sides lose a step, but we're starting to attrit. Nowhere else really seemed like a good attack except down here in the south. We were able to get an advance after eliminating one step unit, but we did take a step ourselves, so that stack right here is actually pretty weak. And then otherwise, we only hurt ourselves down here, Turns out the New Zealanders are not exactly the stars of the show this time around, and are hurting trying to get through those Italians. So we're certainly building up bodies here, and it may behoove the Axis to try to figure out a new line of defense, maybe, but well, we'll see what happens. Okay, we're going to go to the chit, pull again, and we get the other Allied combat. Now this is the full combat, and won't be. We really won't have to worry about what do you call it? The die roll negative. So that's good, at least, I guess. And we'll have to see. So this is full combat for the Allies. I'll be back in a second. Okay, we're back, and we've got some movement going on here. So unfortunately, down in the south just seems to be bad luck. The Allies had tricked themselves once again. But in the north, we managed to push back a stack of panzers, who are now backed up to here. We were to move up. So I think we're doing okay because we've got all these reserves over here for the Allies. So I think we're putting the hurt on the Axis. They're going to have a hard time replacing these losses. We'll go ahead and pull the next shit. And it is Allied reinforcements. And again, these are pretty much all tank upgrades. So I'm going to take a minute, clip those counters, replace them. Some of the units being replaced or upgraded are in the dead pile, so they will stay in the dead pile with the new unit, but the units that are on the board will get a little bit of a stat boost. So I'll be back when the reinforcement is... oh, dang it. I couldn't have done that, actually, because the Allied markers were 2 in a row, so we have to pull the remaining Axis marker, or logistics chit, I guess. So, alright, we did pull the Axis. It's going to have to be a move. So before, I guess, the tank upgrades occur, the Axis have a chance to do a half move. And I think right now, what they may want to do is create a new line and sort of sharpen up the game position. So I'll be right back when that half move is complete. Okay, so we were able to kind of... I debated on pulling back more, but I realized that I'd have to re-entrench in some of the areas that we have fortified boxes. And I don't want to be... those are going to be really important going forward here as we keep moving through the game. So as I look around and just try to validate, you know, what we have, I kept this structure, so we're sort of, you know, a C shape this way and a C snake-ish shape down this way. What I want to do is use this tank and blow through some of these weakened infantry units, depending on how things go. So, right now, the rest of the chits are the logistics chit and the reinforcement chit. So, no matter what happens, logistics are fine. And we'll go ahead, I'll do the reinforcements here off screen. Won't really matter what happens, but though I should point out that with the way that the turn order's gone, with the activation chits, the Allies will have initiative next turn, since both sides got an activation chit as the last two. So I'm going to clip the counters, get things ready for turn 15, and we'll be back. Okay guys, we're going into turn 15 with Allied initiative. I needed to correct one mistake that I made, must have been several turns ago. After the Axis took Tobruk, the next turn's replacement chit for the Allies needed to be this FDR's Promise replacement chit, and it would be automatically selected instead of the drawn one. When I looked through the last couple of turns, I saw that in terms of the replacements, it would have netted the Allies only one extra tank replacement. And so what I've done is, after I drew the chits for turn 15 that you can see on the board, I basically retroactively threw it back on turn 11 or so, And I gave, on top of the replacements that the Allies got this turn, I gave them 1 extra tank replacement, because that's really what the difference would have been. Now, that's valuable to the Allies as is anyway, but, it's sort of making up for a mistake, though I don't think it'll impact the game too much, just getting them an extra replacement. Now, I will say, it's kind of funny, because out of the, now 10 tank units that the Allies could have on the board, several of them have been removed or have been eliminated. I think it's like 3 out of the 10. So not all of the Allies' tank forces are even on the map, and the Allies are going to have to think hard about reapplying them to the front and really making them work, because we have very limited time left in the game. And if at this point, if we get into turns like 16, and the Allies aren't any closer to taking Solomon Bardia, I may call the game early, or I might just play through it the whole thing just for sort of historical interest to see how things turned out. So looking at the action chits for this turn, it's actually kind of interesting. Oops, forgot our logistics chits. Can't forget those guys. So we have sort of a reduced turn this time around, which isn't good for either side, really. But fortunately, this is just a lull, and the last 2 turns are going to be relatively active in terms of what's going to happen. So what do we have? Well, we've got the last bit of reinforcements for the Allies, which is just going to be 2 new tank artillery support tokens, and then 1 returning unit. They also get their Monty chit, and then they get this 8th Army chit. And what the 8th Army chit is it's basically like the 13th and 30th Corps chits combined. It allows you to basically activate units as if those were as if you had drawn both of those older chits at the same time. Now, right now, both of those HQs on the front line are sort of situated towards the top of the map. We may need to move them around a little bit to get a better activation set up for future turns, but we'll have to see how that rolls. And then they get a full move and a full combat. So not a whole lot, honestly. Not a whole lot, but it's a decent allotment for the lull that we have here. And then the Axis just get Rommel. They get the Panzer Army Africa. And they get 2 crappy ores. So not a lot of options for the Axis at all, actually. So this is kind of bad. And in fact, that Italian 21st Corps activation chip will no longer be used for the rest of the game. And so the HQ position on the board will be purely for the purposes of using the artillery support. So things are getting a little constrained. Next turn, it'll be a little more active. The Allies will have 2 moves and 2 combats along with the 8th Army in Monty. So in effect, they've just got, they're going to have a whole bunch of actions they can take. The Axis will be much more constrained, and so they're going to have to use their actions very, very carefully to ensure the protection of Bardia and Solemn. At this point, I'm not sure Tobruk could be taken, but who knows? Anything could happen still yet in the game. With the Allies having initiative, what they need to do at this point is they need to take a move and get all of their units set up for the combats to come. So the Allies are going to do that. They're going to take their move as the first action and move some counters out of the way here. Yeah, so we're going to do Allied move. I'll show you what that looks like when we get back. Okay, so the Allied move is complete. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't quite get this HQ down kind of where I wanted it to be. So there's going to be some reduced effectiveness unless we can get the Monty chit out. And but we would just, it's a kind of an ugly choice here. Because really what it is that 13th HQ activation gets these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys. But this HQ as it is would maybe get these guys and these guys, basically. So, depending on how you want to count that, it's awfully weird. I do kind of dislike and feel bad that we're kind of up here in the space where we're at, but at this point it's too far gone, and we're playing off the map edge. That's just reality, so we're going to have to deal with it for now. So, okay, that was the best we could get going. The rest of the chits are going to go in the cup. Again, I think we can maybe get by without using Monty to move yet, because we could still get, what, we got a regular move marker, right? Let me double check that. Yeah, we get a regular, well, we use our regular move, so we want to be as effective as possible here, but we could just use it as a combat chit. So, okay, yeah, we won't use Monty yet. Okay, we're gonna pull the first chit. It is logistics. Everybody's in supply. Everybody's having a good time. All right, drawing the next chit. It is the Axis move or crappy combat. Now, I don't think they have too much for movement right now, but a crappy combat, yeah, I mean, we could cause losses. I'll think about this. We'll be right back. Okay, we did a crappy move with the Axis, and we didn't want to do any attacks because they would just go so poorly. Whoops, just smacked the camera. Great. Because they wouldn't, the attacks probably wouldn't go well, and we'd rather let the Allies try to attack and take losses themselves. And so they did make use of the move, though, to get one of their fortified boxes back on the map. And I think the only other thing we're going to do very quickly was 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to deploy a garrison. Oh, I guess maybe we can't use that garrison because it's a. Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. All right. I also left that anti-tank asset out, but it's fine. Okay. All right. So that's done. Pull the next chit. Panzer Army Africa. So here's where we can actually do a real attack, at least with the Panzer Army Africa. Though it's not a great position right now. So that would be 7 versus 16, 19, 2-1 odds, +2. Yeah, I don't know that the Axis tries to attack here. And part of it is because the Allies now have their assets back. So they could defend here with, 9? And we would be attacking with 19. So like I said, still be 2-1 odds, +2 down here. Yeah, okay. Well, I think movement's fine. We are going to do some combat. So down here, we're going to have these guys attack here. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. Okay. And I dropped my main man Rommel again for some reason. Okay, so 2-1 odds +2 with the full power of the Panzer Brigade. So we got a 5. So defender retreats, but they do take a step loss. So that's what we want. and we won't advance after combat. That's fine. And then elsewhere here, the 8, 9, we could attack with 8, 14, 25, 25 to 8. It would be 3 to 1 odds. We wouldn't get the bonus we would want. Be 8, 35 to 8. Attacking here. Yeah, 35 to 8 attacking here. 35 to 8, so that's 4 to 1 odds. The allies could drop in this. Make it 10. 35 to 8. That's still. I guess we'd have to toss in. Make that 9. 35 to 9. And yeah, so 35 to 9. Still 3 to 1 odds. Jeez. So they'd have to throw in this much more. I don't know. It's just maybe it doesn't make sense for the allies to throw any assets into that. Because they can only defend with 2 units. 7. 11. 35. Jeez. Yeah, okay. They're just going to let that be. They're going to have to let that be 3 to 1 odds. 4 to 1 odds. Dang it. Yeah, okay. 3 to 1 odds plus 2. It's got a 3. Defender retreats. So we didn't give him any. We did give him a step loss because of the Panzer Doctrine, so the Greeks are gone, and then we're going to have to retreat a few hexes. And we won't advance after combat just because we're at the edge of the map. And then any other moves would be pretty difficult. We could try to go maybe 13, 8, 16, 8, 20, 25, 30, 30 to 13 would only be 2 to 1 odds. Probably not worth it. I think that's it. I think that's all they do. So just a couple of minor attacks just to force some units back. And that's all that the Axis will do. We'll pull the next chip, which will have to be a British chip for logistics. So logistics, everybody's happy and in supply. And we get the Allied reinforcements, which I'll need to punch. The last counters in the game that I'm going to punch, and I'll put them on the map. Okay, so here is where I think the Monty chit would get played, because we would want to be able to, we would want to be able to move these units back up and get the HQ we wanted into position. sucks because it's sort of giving up a combat, but we need the next combats to come with the 13th and 30th Corps to be powerful. We'll still have more combat. So Monty's going to get used. Now Rommel's going to hold back because we want to use the Rommel chit to do damage control as the Axis. So we'll let that happen, and we'll take care of movement. Unfortunately, we're awfully congested. Get that guy in here where we wanted. Get these guys over here where we wanted back. Let's see. These guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. These guys in. Okay. We're getting everything where it needs to be for the next pull. Now I think the next pull will have to be an allied chit. Let me double check. Okay, it can be anyone's pull right now. And we pulled the Allied Combat. So I'm going to take us off recording. I'm going to do all the attacks, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we did the combats, at least the ones that made sense to. But even the ones that made sense, when I played all the assets, and I tried to use good logic and the number crunching on when the defender would use assets or when the attacker would try to use assets, the problem was that the die rolls weren't terribly good. The allies can't seem to get any die roll modifiers, and so they're just straight up rolling, and we got either attacker takes a loss or both take a loss. Now, the both taking a loss is helpful, but it's just not getting them anywhere. And I'm getting this feeling in the back of my head like, well, this might be getting towards the end of the game, and there's nothing more that can be done. And the allies are just going to lose, but we'll see, I guess. So next chit is the 8th Army chit. So this is still our opportunity to try to make some grounds here. Now, again, the way the 8th Army works is that it allows both 13th Corps and 30th Corps to activate simultaneously, subject to the restrictions on the individual chits. And basically what it allows is for the range of the HQs, either all British non-tank units or British tank units and up to a couple more units can take action. So there's a little bit of some goofy logic I need to think through and just basically look at each HQ and their range and determine what they can do and what they can do to attack. So I'll take us off recording. I'm going to handle the 30th Corps down here. The 13th Corps is up in the north. 13th is infantry based, and down in the south is tank based. And I unfortunately think I probably put the HQs in the wrong place based on that. Another one of those learning moments. Alright, I'll be back.